Hey everyone, I hope you had a great day. Today we are looking at some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you enjoy them. Please don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps. And now, let's begin, shall we? The first story is called "We Will Now Follow All the Rules." I used to work for a local council within their street works department, maintaining roads and footpaths. Our official hours were 7:30 to 16. A lot of the more conscientious employees, or those that woke up early, would get into work at least half an hour ahead of time and start to work then. All road workers like to get their jobs done as soon as possible. Due to the fact that these people started work early and would often work through their break times or have shorter breaks, they would get finished early, around 13:30. They would then return to the depot, clean off their work vehicles and prepare for the next day. We would then leave early, around 15:30, as we had finished all our assigned work for the day. One supervisor, who was very corporationally minded, got wind of this and started docking people's wages. I'm a union rep at this time and tried to have a reasonable conversation with him and get him to be a bit more flexible with his thinking, as senior management didn't have a problem with it. Obviously, it didn't happen. So I said to the supervisor, if we have to obey that rule, we will obey all the rules. Queue workers only starting at 7:30. The depot is chaos, as now instead of 50 workers getting their vehicles and materials over an hour and a half period, they all try to get them at once. Also, productivity dropped further as the workers started taking their full breaks. The supervisor is in charge of monitoring productivity and starts trying to punish workers for the drop. I, as a union rep, am asked to attend these meetings and help the workers. Naturally, I agree. When in the meetings, I explain calmly and clearly the reasons for the drop in productivity. The supervisor tries to bully the workers and myself, and I then asked him, so let me get this straight. You are trying to punish us for obeying the rules? He stutters and mumbled and says this meeting is finished. After this, the department had to start paying for more overtime to do the jobs that needed to be done, as they were no longer being done. The next story is called "They Want to Save Money the Wrong Way." So I was working as a consultant and got promoted to management and now had a team of 4 consultants working for me at the client side, which I also went to every day. Since I was already their senior consultant and team leader, this meant very little change to my everyday job. But as part of being management, I was now going to be assigned an office at our company's HQ, as I took on a couple of other tiny clients, so I couldn't technically be officed at the big client side. This being a pretty small company, I knew most of the other management folks just work from home, since we spend all of our time at client sites. So I asked HR if they would authorize the purchase of a multifunction printer for my home office so I could print, fax and scan and just be home-based. No way, they replied, as that could cost as much as $700, plus I might expect IT support. And besides, I had access to all of that stuff at my shiny new office at HQ. So the geniuses assigned me an office. This is a private 10x10 office in the New York City office market, so it's costing them quite some money to waste this space on me. Thankfully, the previous occupant had left the office jam-packed with piles of papers on the desk, which I left completely untouched, so it might look to passers-by like I was actually using the office. I visited it once when I had to interview some folks at HQ, stuck my nameplate on the door, and never went back. But that's not the malicious compliance. If I had been home-based, policy would have been that leaving my home to get to the client was just part of job expectations. But since they assigned me a physical office at HQ, every time I went to the client side, I was technically traveling away from my office. And the rules meant I was now covered by travel and expense policy. This meant I should now expense the mileage at roughly 50 cents per mile. Ka-ching! And since the client side was 75 miles away from my home, this meant every trip to the client side earned me $75. Since I went there almost every day, this meant a weekly cash price of $300 to $375. All because someone didn't want to spend $700 on a printer for me. I expensed those miles every day for the remainder of the time I worked there, cashing in over $10,000 a year in free money. The third story is called Compliance with a Bad Professor. In college, I needed to be able to charge my phone in order to take pictures of the board. I had an old phone at the time, and cameras on phones were still quite new. But it was better than trying to copy the contents of the board to paper at the rate the teacher liked to go. Though this course was held in a computer lab, we weren't allowed to use the PCs at that point, as they were still being configured. But the USB ports worked fine. That said, we weren't allowed to use the outlets, computers, or anything else. It was policy to allow cell phones to be used for note-taking via cameras, but my ancient little phone only lasted an hour or so before the battery died when in camera mode. This particular instructor was sour and generally annoyed about the existence of tools that let his students take notes effectively. He took apparent pleasure in watching students panic, trying to take down notes as fast as he could copy his own to the board. I outright refused to play that game, and my phone was the only option left to me. The professor was the one denying the use of USB ports and wall outlets. And while I would have loved a USB power bank, they didn't exist yet. At least not that I was aware of. What I did have, however, was a hand-crank USB charger that I had borrowed from my dad. He had bought a few of them for an emergency kit and had given me one to use in the dorm should an emergency occur that involved extended power loss. The rest of the class wasn't in on what I planned to do. But I freely distributed notes in the form of pictures I had taken, as note-taking in that teacher's class was infamously terrible. So I was generally popular for sharing so openly. The next class period I sat right up front, so the early digital camera could actually capture images well enough to read. I had been told that while the phone was permitted, any form of charging that used the classroom's resources was not, so I brought my own. Halfway through the class period, in the middle of a lecture, I pulled out the crank, set it up on my desk, and halfway through a sentence, the professor winced and turned around. I was just sitting there, cranking away. My phone was pinned between two enormous textbooks to keep it in place and aimed at the board. My desk was a mess of cables and plug adapters that were needed to convert from hand crank to USB power. After a few moments of just staring at me, he asked, "Can I help you with something?" I just shook my head and informed him that I was good. I just needed to try to keep my phone charged so I could keep taking notes. Most of the other students just giggled. The teacher looked around, but no one objected. Most of us just smiled up at him. Magically, the power outlets and USB ports alike suddenly became available. The last story is called You Won't Provide It? I work in the logistics division of a big chain of stores. We also cooperate with a few other chains in the same sector. And so we store a few profile articles with their logos on them at our warehouse. After asking for and being denied a new laptop from the IT department for several years, they finally gave in and I got to use a new laptop at work. Great was the joy. However, they refused to give me a bag to carry it around and travel when I visited other facilities in the same company. At first, I just carried it out in the open all the way from the parking lot and to whatever office or meeting room I was to go to. This wasn't obvious enough. So by the third time I had to travel with my new laptop, I found a plastic bag with the logo of one of these other chains we were cooperating with. This didn't attract any attention before my boss and I were late for a meeting with upper management due to heavy traffic. When we finally arrived at the meeting, everybody else was already seated and ready to begin. As we sat down, I pulled up my computer from our cooperative competitor chain bag and an absolute silence settled in the room. As it turned out, the meeting's agenda was terminating the cooperation with this particular competitor. Awkwardness ensued. By the time we were back at our usual offices, a brand new laptop carrying bag without any logos was waiting for me in my office. Thanks for watching the video. If you had fun watching the video, please subscribe to the channel for more content. And please let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.